Kelsi Mayne totally deserves this. You'll hear what I mean by that eventually, trust me. I remember distinctly the moment I showed signs of becoming a jaded music industry veteran in the great line of other jaded music industry veterans I had met and known and heard speak in the backyard invitation-only parties at South by Southwest or on panels at various conferences and festivals. I was sitting in a conference room of the Alberta Foundation for the Arts with a handful of peers reviewing grant applications for recording funding. We had probably reviewed our 10th application of an artist I had never heard of, yet had a list of accolades and achievements over a decent span in the province and beyond. It dawned on me how futile industry-created awards might be if a music fan still didn't know who you were. Maybe that doesn't seem jaded to you. Actually, just shrewdly realistic. But it clearly came from a place of feeling I had seen enough and knew enough to allow myself a blanket dismissive opinion. I'm not interested in anonymous success. Put that in air quotes. It's something I said. It's stuck with me forever. I have made a vigilant effort to combat the tones of jaded opinions since then, despite still accepting that this was maybe my personal truth, but it didn't mean I should be dismissive of those who don't share it. Kelsi Mayne has been fighting to establish a career for almost a decade. A pure love of singing and music gave birth to a songwriter and performer who has learned through all of the trials how to carry on, building a resume of local and national accolades, but clearly uninterested in that anonymous success as she keeps going, keeps pushing for more. Ambition the size of Texas. 10 years of being an up-and-coming star hasn't dimmed the light. Kelsi is a country artist out of Windsor, Ontario, combining multi-genre influences to shape her own identity as a storyteller in the grand tradition. With 3 singles already released in 2025, her 4th and most recent single, Someone Who Knows, strikes a more vulnerable and complete version of Kelsi Mayne that offers a little something for everyone. My name is Glen Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Kelsi Mayne. I do a session at the end with my daughter of every post of these. We sort of have a little conversation at the end. And frequently, I don't know whether she's always messing with her settings, but I would hit record and then all of a sudden everything would change. So it leaves me in this state of also panic when it comes to an actual session recording that would be the same thing. But here we are. We've figured some things out. Thank you so much for joining me, Kelsi. Kelsi Mayne. Kelsi, where in Canada are you right now? I'm assuming Canada.
I am in North Bay, Ontario at the moment.
Okay, so what are you
in a classroom? That's a
chalkboard.
It's a chalkboard.
It could pass for a really, like those blurred backgrounds when you're on Zoom or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's real. It's real. I am currently working on a TV show filming up in North Bay at the moment. So.
Oh my goodness, that's great. Okay, so give us a little geography lesson for all the people who don't know where North Bay, Ontario is relative to the things they probably would know in Ontario.
Well, it is like 4 hours north of Toronto and about 45 minutes from Sudbury.
Oh, okay.
So if that helps.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it is wild out here. It's beautiful. There's like all these rocks and moss and trees, and the wildlife it's real. I almost hit a moose a couple weeks ago. That was frightening. And I looked across the street. One time there's another school across the street. And so this is our production office that we're working out of. It's like an old abandoned school. But there's a functional one across the street. And there was a kid riding a bike. It was maybe 7:30 p.m. He's riding his bike outside, and he is being chased by a deer. I am not kidding. He's literally, and it takes me a while to process what's actually happening, but literally across the street, he's just like, it's trafficking.
These
He's
are the
like
best.
running away.
These are the best Canadian stories right off the bat. Like,
Where am I? Right?
yeah, you go to America and people think we're making this shit up, right? And
It's great. It was wild.
yeah, that's that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, the Ontario North, is an incredibly vast amount of incredible, all of it, all of Canadiana, woods, rock, the Great Canadian Shield, the wildlife, the whole bit. I mean, I'm Alberta guy, so I just as likely could go driving for a couple hours from where I am and almost hit a moose and see a guy getting chased by a deer also. So it's relative right across the country, I guess. Tell me about what you're doing when you say you're working on a television program in Northern Ontario. What are you working on? Or is it top secret?
I don't know if I can say.
That's
It's
fair.
yeah, I don't know if I can say it, but I have a film and television background, so I've also worked in that space for many years. So this was just a job that I'm actually hired as a medical consultant on this one.
Okay.
So it's
That's
yeah,
all we need to know.
that-
You
that's
don't
all
have
I'll
to
say.
you don't
But
have to spill the not ready for IMDb kind of
yeah,
deets yet.
yeah.
That's
Well,
fine.
so during COVID, because I have a film and television background, plus I actually went to school for nursing. So both of those things kind of combined during COVID as like a necessity because
Yeah.
they never stopped production. So that's how I got back into it because I used to act and I did that for many years before I did music full time. So
Okay. Okay, well
I've done it all.
that's awesome because this is what I like this is what I like to do, Kelsey. I like to get back to the start and then draw my way through a timeline. So I'll quickly frame us right off the bat and before I do that because that's my normal motif. But I wanted to say like one of the reasons we're talking and you're talking probably to a lot of people is because you have a new single out, Someone Who Knows, which is very fresh out in the world right now. So that's always exciting. Congratulations.
cute.
And that's like the fourth single of this year of 2025 so far. Is that what I saw?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
four singles. That's quite a roll. You played some of the biggest shows that are kind of available in the country music summer circuit, which is the big time of country music in this country. So most of the time people have a plan. Sometimes it's not a plan. So is this all the plan? Was this all part of the plan? Like where you're sitting on October 1st of 2025? Are you feeling like, yep, this is just exactly the way we planned it? Or is it not the case?
Well, sitting here in North Bay wasn't originally the plan, but sitting here with a new single has been the plan for a while. I've been in doing music for about 10 years, and so it's been a lifelong dream. I just didn't have the guts to pursue it as a child and growing up and going to university. I thought it was more of a pipe dream, and I figured I would try to use my other skills, which was I loved the sciences and I loved to just help people. So I thought I would be a good nurse, and I did win some awards and some scholarships and stuff while I was in school, and I did enjoy it, but I still felt like I needed to get this music thing out of my system and like actually try it. And so when I graduated, I was working at a Coyote Ugly bar. It was like I was like a bed retainer. So they had me as like a server slash singer, and I would jump up and sing and on the bar, and then I would jump back down and serve. And I did that to pay for my education and also to kind of get the entertainment side and the singing side, like kind of out of my system, but it kind of did the opposite. So
Yeah.
it kind of sparked that, well, it lit that flame, and it kind of just grew and grew and grew. And I just figured I would regret if I didn't try it. So
this is like
here I
really,
am.
this is really common, right? In the music industry of along that trajectory of people who are either trying it out or dipping their toes, or even in the, I don't know if we don't really have a term of professional versus amateur or any of that, but you know, somewhere in that spectrum of when you're going along where, you know, there's a version where people have to keep a day job because it takes a long time to get towards paying the bills, if ever, and you're always finding some way to be scrappy and keep that balance happening. But then there's also a version where I think it's very familiar to people to wrestle with practicality. I think it's kind of universal for anybody who has an aspiration that feels like a really big dream, whether it be a really big education dream or career goal. But the whole, like, you know, was your whole family, do you have like a family of practical people? Was there an influence on you to be like, I need to make the responsible choice and solidify my backup plans, or how did that come about?
So my dad's a writer, and so if he could, he would have done creative writing, but that doesn't really pay the bills. So he was a reporter for the newspaper, the Windsor Star. That's where I grew up, in Windsor, Ontario. And then he worked for car magazines in Detroit, because he's also American. So just commuting, everyone in Windsor commutes, like probably 50% of the people commute to the States to work. And so he worked for some magazines, and then he ended up doing PR for Chrysler. So he was a writer, and that's how but he paid his bills doing the more practical writing jobs. And then my mom's an artist, but she's a visual artist. So she did a lot of the murals around the city, and the last, I would say, 7 years-ish, she's been doing sculpting. So it's something that I didn't realize wasn't a normal thing growing up. It was like, when my friends and my band, and they all come to my hometown. We have, like, this year I headlined a hometown show, and I was showing them around, and it's like, oh yeah, like my mom painted that, and she did that sculpture over there, and I'm like, I guess that's not what normal families can say. Like, not everyone can say that.
Yeah.
That your mom's kind of legacy is just scattered around the city for years to come. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Windsor, you're talking about Windsor. That's hometown for you.
Yes.
Which is awesome. And so I used to play in a touring band. I have a curiosity I just realized. Is Fog Lounge still around? Is there any chance?
I believe it is.
Really?
I believe it is. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Last time I was, I don't go downtown very much, but I'm pretty sure it's still there. Yeah.
So it was my favorite place to come play. And the guys in the band would always be like, what are we doing here, man? Like, there's room for 15 people and a little triangle stage you could only put the drums on, and then everyone else had to stand on the floor in front of it. But I loved it, and there was all these fans that were in Detroit and across border side who loved to come across to see shows, and I always loved going through Windsor. Actually, my other favorite Windsor story was we came in on tour once, and it was June, and the city workers had all gone on strike, and we're driving in, and it looked like a scene from The Walking Dead, because the grass in the parks was about 1.5 feet high, and the garbage was just sitting out everywhere because it hadn't been picked up because of the strike. And I think it was province-wide because it was in Toronto as well. But the scene of driving into Windsor looked like it was from The Walking Dead. So that's a real interesting place, I think, to grow up for people, right? Like, I don't know if everybody understands, there's nowhere else like that has that kind of influence, right? Just like you're basically across the tunnel from Detroit and all the impacts, like you were just saying, all the people that go work there. Yeah. So you get, growing up in Windsor, you got a creative family, which is actually really cool and rare to be in. I read that you have Star Trek in your in your background and past. So there's these, and the reason I bring that up is you're the second person I'll talk to who had like track and field I don't know if you're familiar with Tamara Beatty, the voice coach.
Yes.
Okay. So
she coached me for a bit.
Oh,
yeah.
did you? Okay.
I've had her as my coach.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's a really good friend of mine and an absolute sweetheart. And she did track stuff. And a lot of that fitness training of her youth is the kind of the model she's used to obviously build her voice fit, performance career stuff. So, which is pretty awesome.
It's so true. I think that there's totally a relation with, actually, Paul McGuire and I had this conversation about the same thing. He was like, there's some relation with like athletes and musicians, and a lot of musicians are former athletes, and I think it's just has something to do with stubbornness and determination, and I think just the ones that stick it out long enough. It's that mentality of like, I think sports teaches you that, and it's like a gradual satisfaction, and it's not all immediate, and so you have to be patient.
The belief in putting in the work is definitely the thing that you need to get you through whatever gap of time that you're going to be putting in the work, right? Okay, so I think that's a really great connection. So you go into nursing, you study that there. So you've like, I just find this stuff really interesting, Kelsi. I love that there's this, I guess I wouldn't have guessed it. You have these creative parents, and yet you've built such disciplined practicality into your life growing up, which, when a lot of people say isn't always like the hotbed of I'm going to become an artist type of thing. So I'm curious in all of that. You told us a little bit of the story of like, when you finished university, you went to the Coyote Ugly bar, you kind of got a chance to sing, you were trying to work it out of your system and feel what that was like. But I'm wondering, sort of somewhere sooner in that, you must have gotten a picture of like what this could look like. I'm wondering where that happened, because I think your childhood growing up obviously had some really interesting like dichotomies existing. So
Well, I grew up on the stage. I grew up actually Highland dancing, so that was another life of mine. So track and field, Highland dancing, nursing, bartender, server, bevertainer,
artistic, but
whatever
how
you call
disciplined is Highland dancing, right? Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, very, very. And I had to give it up I got to the highest level, but then as soon as I got there, pretty much I had to give it up because I was growing at the same time and had all these injuries from just growing and the constant pounding that your joints take. And so I had both of my knees and both of my heels all the tendons were all ripping. So the doctor said if I didn't want it to be permanent, then I had to stop the most rigorous thing that I was doing. And of course, I did sports all at the same time. I've always been a tomboy, so I had to stop. I had to give up dancing because that was the hardest on me. And then, but I just always still loved the stage. So I kind of always found my way back to it. And then I think that's where I went back when I was in nursing school. And then I had this job opportunity, and it was like, it was just, it was my way of my outlet. And then when I was graduating at the same time, I had, it was still a pipe dream at that time, but I had these two patrons, 2 nights in a row, complete strangers come up to me and say the exact same thing. And the first time, so the first one said, "What are you doing here? And you should take this to the big city." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's very sweet of you to say that. Thank you." And I just kind of brushed it off. And then the very next night, I had a different stranger come up to me, and I just got off the stage again, and he said the exact same thing. And I was like, this is weird. Like the choice of those words, the word choice was just, it was a weird thing to say. "What are you doing here? And you should take this to the big city." So I was like, like, I don't know if this is, a divine intervention or whatever it is, but like I had to take it as some sort of sign. So I was like, okay, well, if these, and also the fact that like these complete strangers came up to me in the first place to tell me that, like they didn't have to do that, but that meant more than like having your friends and family encourage you, you know?
Yeah.
So, which I'm also very grateful to have, because I think that they've believed in me more than I've believed in myself most of my life. But I think it means a little bit more when someone with no obligation comes up to you and tells you that. So.
Yeah, I mean, your family gets you out the front door with all their belief, but you need those people to actually make you feel like, you know, your feet are on the actual ground that they're supposed to be on. So that's a pretty cool experience to have. So did you move into the songwriting and the sort of the personal artistic development pretty fast then? Did that start rolling out pretty quick?
No, I just wanted to sing and perform because I love the stage, and anyone that's ever seen me play live can attest to that, because it's just like I feel like I'm kind of quiet, and I kind of like keep to myself when I'm just like on my own, but when I'm on stage it's like a whole new side of me that kind of comes out. And but I didn't get into songwriting until I moved to Toronto, and then I had another artist friend, songwriter friend, Scotty Kipfer was one of my first kind of music contacts, and he said, you know, if you really want to pursue this thing, you need to learn an instrument, and then you need to start writing your own stuff. And so I was like, okay. So I picked up a guitar, and like when I was like 21, and then I started learning, and I actually called up my old buddy that I went to like kindergarten with and grew up with, who used to be a regular at the Fog Lounge. And I asked him to teach me some guitar. And so he taught me, and just, you know, the basic chords, and then off I went. But songwriting is definitely like a newer love of mine that I didn't know I had the passion for. But my gosh, it just makes me feel so alive when I get to write. So it's so cool.
Now, I love asking people like who their North Star kind of was, like who was the person. So the other night, actually, I'll tell you the funny one is because I was able to participate with an awesome thing that happened just last weekend called Music Day in Canada, and able to sort of sponsor it. And then they had showcases in 11 different cities, and I got to host the one here in Edmonton, but they planned a metal night, which is not necessarily in my pocket, but so I was emceeing essentially, but it was fun because I still did the same thing. I went around and talked to bands and find out, you know, I got the predictable, like Metallica was my North, you know, they're the ones that got me to play guitar or whatever. So pretty on the nose, but I had read that obviously I think you had said Miranda Lambert was a huge influence on you. I don't know if that's who you'd answer, kind of was your North Star, but I'm always curious about two sides of the coin. Is one is who's, that big star that you're like, everything about them, it's, you know what I mean? It's never just one thing. It's everything about them sort of embodies what you would want to aspire to. And also, it's not just aspire to, it's literally be, right? Like you would like to recreate some of that in your life. But then the other side of the coin is you start doing it and you maybe start seeing people who are more local or more regional or Canadian or whatever, that because they're a little more close to home, make you believe like, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can too. I'm curious what those kind of people are in your life too.
Well, yeah, you're right. So Miranda was actually my influence. So I kind of taught myself to sing by impersonating other singers. So like
you say that sheepishly, Kelsi. Like you don't think everybody does that? You think they all go hire Tamara Beatty when they're 6 years old?
It's only because like usually the next thing is like, oh, well, show us what you do. But I haven't done that in years. But it's like I did everyone from like Cher to James Blunt and Nora Jones and like Miranda and Leanne Rimes and stuff. So, and Christina Aguilera. So it was like, I would just try to mimic, like kind of make the sounds that they would.
You mean
and
like
then,
Ariana Grande when she does that thing on like Jimmy Fallon and mixes all the, yeah.
I have an old high school talent show video somewhere floating in the universe. I think on some link or something like that. But of me going from like one act to the next, to the next, to the next. But I got that from my dad. So my dad, I grew up with him doing impersonations of, he was really good at Elvis and then Louis Armstrong, Neil Diamond, and then, but he killed at country, like Garth Brooks, Randy Travis, Dwight Yoakam, like he could do all of them. So, and then I just really enjoyed doing Miranda's. And then once I started playing guitar, I really got into her songwriting and I fell in love with her style of songwriting. So that was kind of, I think, how I found country, and then how I stayed with it and how I fell in love with songwriting and how I learned guitar.
Okay,
I was playing her songs.
I'm going to come back to the second half of my question to make sure I get it. But before I do that, so doing that, which I think, again, I said before, I think that's completely legit and how a lot of people, maybe not to the level of like full impersonalization, right? But because that can then make it maybe hard to find your own voice. Because even people who are just, just starting out, that's the main thing. Because I've been on so many of these development programs and stuff that, you can listen to the TV shows like Idol and stuff and how often the criticism is that they haven't actually found themselves yet. So did that take you a long time to find, I guess is my question, because I don't know when on that journey that you ran into Tamara Beatty, but if you hadn't found it by that point, she probably was going to make sure that you did. I'm just wondering what that experience was like.
I was already when I worked with Tamara. I mean, I feel like I'm still finding my artist side a little bit, but I've definitely like, I feel more myself this year than I ever have. And it's a really, really cool feeling to feel like, okay, I finally know who I am. But I'm still discovering new things about my voice every single day. So it's kind of cool to, I don't know, just keep on learning and figuring yourself out.
Well, that feeling is pretty significant, right? Like that's the point when a lot of people, probably start feeling like, okay, now this is actually a thing more than ever.
Yeah. And I think but it's really helped. I think doing all the different styles has also really helped me to be able to, like, all of my songs this year are pretty different from each other. Like All or Nothing is a really rockin' song. And then it goes to my second single was Breaking Bad, which is country. It's like country kind of folk, four on the floor, train beat kind of thing. And then Georgia Off My Mind is my other influence, which is like R&B and hip hop and stuff, which is what a lot of the other stuff that I grew up on. But, and then this one, Someone Who Knows, this latest single is very different from all of that. But I still feel like it's my sound. Like at the end of the day, I'm still the common denominator for all of it. And it's, I don't feel like I'm putting on a different act for any of them. It all feels like me, and it's all came from such a raw and genuine place, each one of those songs. But it's because of my vast background in all of these different influences that have influenced all of my style of writing. And I don't know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it's just me being ADD, but it's someone asked me the other day, they're like, what's your style? I'm like, I don't know, ADD country, like it's like all over the map. But yeah, I love it. It's cool. I don't like to do the same thing twice. So
that sort of feeds into a question that was bouncing in the back of my head, which is the vocal styling on Georgia Off My Mind, which I think is like you're right, completely unique and stands out from your other songs, but very much in the pocket of, like you said, more of an R&B influence. So is that just literally a one-off, or is that something that might appear more often? Because you did it really well, and it definitely stands apart from the other things that you've done.
I got more coming. I do. And we incorporate a lot of my different styles in our live show too. So we do all sorts of covers, but I have some more original stuff that's coming out. I also like to write for other people. So there's a song that I did recently that is being shopped around to Usher currently, and Tyler Hubbard, and so it's cool to see people from different genres and stuff that are considering my songs. So it's cool.
Okay. I tend to just allow if things are going to bounce. I'm fine with the bounce around. So, because sometimes I get stuck on being like, no, I got to go back to my timeline, but I have to like jump on the things that I hear there. So if it's being shopped around, you have a publishing deal with somebody, or you don't?
No, I'm still completely independent.
Okay.
But it's just like knowing different people in Nashville, and some of my co-writers have gotten them sent out, and just like friends of friends and stuff, and they're just
So like the normal trajectory for country, even though you said you're ADD country and you have everything going on in there, but generally in country, and I'm going to say this I'm going to just let you know with a little naivete, because country in Alberta, it all just centralizes in Calgary the same way it does in Nashville in the States, right? And I might make some of them mad right now, and there were some really good friends there, but I think that they consider themselves the center of country probably in Canada. And I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't know if it's only because the Stampede happens there and it's a world event, but it happens. It is, and it is what it is. And they even have obviously a stage called Nashville North, and rightly so, I think, consider themselves that.
I love that stage.
It's amazing.
Played it many times.
It's amazing. And nobody's wrong. I should frame this for anybody who thinks I might be making a criticism. Like, amazing things happen in Calgary. People gravitate there the way they would to Toronto for most genres in this country, and make connections. But so I guess one thing that I'm sort of curious about in the whole publishing. So did you get on the typical sort of country aspiration thing? And I guess a part of me is curious if it's the same in Ontario as it is in Alberta, where you start like having to get into contests and perform on contests, and you have to start, and radio is the biggest to country music, probably other than pop, of all the genres right now, for still having a very viable top level influence on your success and opportunity. And you start trying to have to do the things like push singles and go and do radio tours. Like, you're not even touring, you're just visiting radio stations and talking. And then eventually you start making trips to Nashville and trying to meet people and get on songwriting things. Was all of that sort of standard for what started to become the pursuits for you as well?
Like coming to Alberta, or
no, just in general. Like when you started pursuing this a lot more seriously, was that trajectory getting filled up with the same sort of activities and pursuits? I guess I'm asking you to confirm my horrible stereotype. Were all those things normal for you? Is those the things that happened for you?
You know what? So I felt like, definitely going to Nashville is definitely like, yes, like you have to, if you're going to do country music, you're going to need to spend some time in Nashville. I also felt like going to Alberta for the first time and performing there. The first time I went, I did a tour. We landed in Fort Mac, and then we went down. We had some shows we did like Edmonton, Calgary, and then we ended up in at the Big Valley Jamboree. That was our last show. So we just kind of made our way through the province. And I felt like, I could feel like I could say, like, I've made it in the country, like, as a country artist. Like, it was like a staple for the Albertans to accept me.
Yeah.
From Ontario. Like, I wouldn't really consider Ontario so country, but there's definitely country and counties and really like farming towns, but I mean, it's Alberta and the prairies is that's the real deal. So every time I come to Alberta, it's just so cool to see them. I've always felt like they've just like welcomed me with open arms, and I've always just felt like it's like another home to me. So it's really, really cool. And next on my bucket list is Texas. So I want to be accepted. Once I'm accepted in Texas, then I feel like I can be a true country artist. But
you know what, though? That probably isn't true, though, Kelsi, because then you'll conquer Texas, and then all of a sudden you'll have your sights set on the next big thing, right? Isn't that
probably?
That's what
probably. Australia is next.
Yeah. Oh, you got to go to Australia. My friends in the Dungarees go there every year, and country is killing in Australia. So, yeah.
I know.
So see, there you go.
I've had some invites, so just gonna make the logistics work.
Texas and then Australia, or Australia and then Texas. Either way, one way or the other. You got to get them both done. I mean, so you had a bunch of these things. I mean, I'm glad to hear. Well, first of all, I should say I'm really glad how warm you feel when you come to Alberta. That makes me really happy and proud, of course, as an Albertan. But so these normal things that happen for people, which I guess I'm interested all the time. Like, we have to keep all these different balls in the air when you're aspiring towards a career, right? You're trying to learn to be a good songwriter. You're trying to learn who the right people you need to build relationships with. You don't know what comes first when you need to build a team. Do I get my publicist? Do I get a manager first? Do I get an agent? And then you're going to conferences and festivals and you're trying to meet all these people. And then you're entering some contests and either hoping to A, win some notoriety, or B, win some money to pay for the things that you have to do. And so all these things are happening in the aspiration. I'm wondering, in those times for you, were you getting like a lot of validation from those, the same way you talked about coming to Alberta and getting welcomed? Because there's like a lot of hardship in all of that. I'm wondering which parts of those, other than coming to Alberta, were sort of giving you the things that you needed to say, yeah, I think I can do this.
Well, one of my first affirmations was when I just moved to Toronto. I was able to go there because my brother was already living there, but he had a bachelor loft, so like no rooms or anything. It was very little privacy, but bless his soul, I didn't even really ask. I just said like, hey, I'm coming, I'm moving in with you. And of course, like I'm the youngest in my family, so my older siblings are just kind of used to that, but me just invading their space. But so he just let me camp out I would have an inflatable mattress that I'd set up in the living room and every day, and it would deflate by the morning, but it would stare out at this big window because it was a 2-level loft apartment, and it had this huge window, and just outside the window, right after I had moved in, there was a billboard that went up, and it was Miranda Lambert, playing Boots and Hearts. And so I was like, what's Boots and Hearts? Like, I didn't even know about it because living 4 hours away, I wasn't aware of it at the time. And then I looked it up, and it was this huge festival. And I'm like, how come I've never heard of this before? But I looked up the tickets, and I'm like, well, I can't even afford a bed right now, let alone a $300 ticket for the weekend or whatever it was. And so I was like, you know what? I promised myself, I said, if I go, it's because I'm going to be playing. And so a couple years later, I was looking at tickets again. I had a bed at that time. And I was trying to save up for it. And then, but I applied for the Emerging Artist Showcase. And then I heard back from them, and they selected me as their performer. So I didn't have to buy a ticket that year, although I was just this close to giving in and doing it. But no, I feel like that was like my first kind of affirmation. And since I've gotten to play that festival 5 times now, so it's really, really cool to see that and to kind of know where I've come from. And you kind of have to always keep those memories in the back of your head, you know, like all the accomplishments. Whenever you start to doubt yourself or get down, you always have to go back to like the little things that keep you going. And then recently I had Chip Matthews, who's Luke Combs' producer, who came across me on Instagram and sent me a message, and he said, I think you have all the makings, and I'd love to work with you one day. I was like, is this the right account? Like, let me check my calendar. But no, but it's just cool to have those affirmations along the way. And so since we've gotten actually really close, and we're getting ready to get into the studio in next month now. So yeah.
So here's what's kind of cool. I'm going to jump right to a big thing I wanted to talk about, because believe it or not, so much of what you said has set up a really interesting dichotomy for the second time in our conversation, because you sort of have described now a handful of, especially when you piece them together, it's like a Hallmark movie set of like universe affirmations. You know, these 2 people 2 nights in a row when you're singing this whole like, you know,
billboard
in your tiny little
billboard, which
apartment, struggling with the billboard and the whole thing. And I'm not going to pay.
It was a literal sign and a figurative sign too.
But that's why I'm saying it's so Hallmark, because it's so on the nose. But
I know.
We just need a little, you know, we need a little snow and a little stuff in there to make it a Hallmark show. But the dichotomy is, and I'm going to jump a little bit on myself here, but the dichotomy is like, when I read your story, like you've had a lot of hard challenges to keep this career going, right? So you've had these incredible signs, and especially the way you so perfectly articulated that you need to go back to those things, even the smallest things, which I guess is going to be part of the answer I was probably going to get towards asking in a question. But you've had some really hardships. Like you started releasing singles in 2017. You released a bunch of singles, which is a pretty common country music trajectory. So you're obviously working your way up, and you worked your way all the way up to 2020 of releasing your first full-length album, which is like so monumental for an aspiring artist, right? Like you literally pour your entire life into that release day, into that release show, and you literally did it on the month that the pandemic happened, which I can't imagine.
A week later.
Yeah.
Because at that time we were like, it's probably going to end like, I don't know, any day now or any week or whatever. And so, I mean, it took me 3 years to make. So I was like, I don't want to hang on to it any longer. So, yeah.
So, I mean, that can't be understated, like how devastating that is to an artist. I mean, there were so many artists of all levels who had put their life into something that either their label told them we're not releasing it because there's no use, or, you know what I mean? A lot of people don't even know how much artistic work got scrapped altogether.
Yeah.
Because you move on,
Absolutely.
like you keep moving on. And then that was then, and now, a few years goes by. So, I mean, you've had a couple of significant things that have happened. I mean, that's a massive, like absolute devastation to a career almost as an aspiring artist. And like you said at the start, you've been going for, pretty much 10 years of saying, I'm going to go after this. That's a long time to feel like an aspiring artist, right? We lose like 3-4 years in the pandemic of feeling like we can really, really gain traction. And now you started getting back into it, which we're going to get to talk about your single because of the subject matter. But, the subject matter of, a long-term relationship ending, like a very long-term relationship, which was an engagement. Am I right in saying that? Right? And it's an engagement.
Yeah. We were engaged.
And timed with the loss of your grandmother and a friend, I think were very similar. Like these are all big things. And when feel like you're always aspiring, I've always said to people, the easiest thing is to stop. The easiest thing to do is always stop. And sometimes life tries to make it even easier for you. The hard thing is to keep going. So you've kind of indicated a few different things. It's a big dichotomy. For one is like you've got some hallmark moments of like, you should do this. And then you got these other big slamming things in your life. So I'm curious, Kelsi, like what are the things that were happening in those times to keep you going?
Well, I mean, with the pandemic, there was, I feel like a lot of these situations, it's like, I didn't really have a choice. Like, it's like, for me, there wasn't any giving up. I'm too stubborn to give up. So it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to have to just do it regardless of what happens. So, the pandemic, it sucked for everyone. And so I felt like, at least I was very fortunate to have my nursing degree to fall back on and this film background and kind of mix the two. And then I figured, whatever I can save up from this opportunity, I can reinvest into my music whenever it ends. And so I've been super fortunate to have that as that was my backup plan. Which never in a million years did I ever think that would ever work out or be a thing. My two random things intertwining. But, and then I think, but definitely the hardest year of my life was last year with, I released a wedding song and then 2 weeks later, so I released it with my engagement announcement. And then 2 weeks later, I received a message from another woman saying she didn't know I existed. And so I packed up and I left. And, it's always been my number one rule. And I'm like, how can I continue to plan a wedding knowing this? Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to do that. So I moved out. And then the next week, my best friend's brother passed away. And I was actually kind of fortunate to also be, at that point, I was back in my hometown. So I was right there. And so literally I got the message and I was at her house in 3 minutes. So I get in a way, I was kind of grateful for that. And then the following week, my grandmother passed away, who was, she was my biggest fan. She was actually the singer in the family, and she gave it up because she had to raise 5 daughters, and hold down the house. But she, I feel like, kind of lived vicariously through me. So there's after she passed away, we had to go through the house and the estate and everything, and my cousins and my family would all say oh, we found a photo of you by the electrical box, in all these random spots. She had kind of almost like shrines of me places. And we just had this extra connection. And so losing her was very hard. And then the next day I had to open for Russell Dickerson, and which is one of the biggest shows I've played to date. And that was at Windsor Coliseum, which is one of her favorite places to go, was at the casino. So it was like that. And then I had to sing the wedding song that I had just released too. So it was like one thing after another. But the one thing that I was also kind of grateful for, and I feel like it was like her last gift to me, was the fact that I didn't have to sing that wedding song for him, is I actually got to dedicate it to her instead. So I feel like that kind of got me through it all. And then and I know that she would have wanted me to play it. Like, she wouldn't have wanted me to miss it. And it was an emotional performance, and it was hard too, because I had to just like put on a front and perform for people, and they had no idea what was going on until I ended up dedicating it to her on stage on the mic. And you could see it, you could just hear the whole audience just go, oh, they all felt for me too, but it also just made it that much more special. I mean, it's life, and now I feel like I can truly say that I've lived all the things that life, I think, can throw at you, and I feel like that's just what's made my songwriting just jump to a different level. So
well, I mean, thank you, first of all, for sharing all of that. Like, that connection with your grandmother is really beautiful. Hearing about somebody who obviously just absolutely treasures you, to have those pictures everywhere and just be your person like that is unbelievable. And I can't imagine doing that performance. So that's an incredible story to hear as well. And I'm glad you made a shout out to the casino in Windsor, because that's where my band would go to have all you can eat brunch, because we'd get the biggest bang for our buck as a touring band when we stayed there. I love that. So, I mean, okay. I don't always do this, but I just have to tell you, listening to that story, I think, is really incredible and beautiful. This is why I do the podcast, is the real truth of it. I just think it's so apparent in 50 minutes of talking together right now that you come from this family with a long line of creative, like, very outgoing spirits who have made sacrifices for each other and for everybody in their life, and to be practical and to be reasonable and to give everybody else around them a good life. I just really feel like that's beautiful, and that you really deserve this, And
thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you.
It's really incredible. I think that's just an incredible story and background to have, that it's bigger than you, right? Like, you have this whole family and line and history, and you don't get to see that stuff. You don't get to see it on stage. You don't get to see it. You can't read between all the lines in songs. You don't read it in the press release. So anyway, I appreciate you telling me all that part of your story, because I think it's really beautiful. So
thank you.
So I wanted to spend the last little bit, though, to be able to talk to you about your single, which, again, I really think is an interesting arrangement of your ideas, and especially now hearing more about how you hold together the things that happen in your life. So what really struck me, so the song Someone Who Knows, which right off the bat, I'm wondering how that phrase is going to even fit in. So I love the first time I listened to it, right? Because, like, where is that going to land, right? Is, like, what's the meaning of someone who knows? And it's very much from, like, take it from me as somebody who knows these things. And what these things are a really interesting way that you wove essentially a whole bunch of cliches and colloquialisms into song lyrics, which on the surface could seem, for a lack of a better term, kind of like easy, low-hanging fruit for songwriting, because they're sentences, but you're talking about the end of a 10-year relationship, finding out in the most horrific way. You're not going to spell that part of the story out. You're being an artistic songwriter. So here's the thing, Kelsi, I found so interesting, is that you use all of these cliches or colloquialisms for the most part through the lyrics. I'll even list some of them here that I wrote down, like learn to walk before you run, Don't put more on your plate than you can eat. Two wrongs don't make a right. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Like, these are relatable phrases that we all know and grow up with. And you're sort of just saying them one after another, almost like you're reading off verses in the Bible kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like one after the other. So they can all feel very veiled, but then you have this ability to resonate with people through real life context, which you veil very nicely until you kind of land on that part where you say, and if you're going to make a promise, you better keep it. And all of a sudden now we know what the subject matter is about in the song. So that's all really well done. I assume, though, that each of those well-known shared phrases weren't just an assembly of ones to fill the verses. It feels like all of them really landed with you, that they land with you somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
When you sing them, this is always my interest in an artist. When you sing them, are you literally every time still conjuring where they land? Each of those ones, where you were, what they meant, you know what I mean? Those moments that they relate to.
There's one line in particular in the second verse. It's don't if you need some help, don't be afraid to ask. And that one, like the amount. So after I went through what I went through, and yeah, I cried my own tears, but I feel like I held it together in front of everyone else for the majority of the time. But the amount of men that I had that cried to me last year, whether they were friends or my ex, or was more than what I've ever had. And I was like, why is this? Like, and so I actually also did like a deep dive into like male psychology, because I also wanted to learn more about like also my situation and like why that happened and stuff. And so just kind of doing that deep dive and just like realizing, you know, the societal pressures on especially men, and like the suicide rates with men, and how much higher it is, and just kind of like realizing as a woman, you know, yeah, it's okay for us to cry, it's more acceptable, but like for men, society doesn't really it's not really a thing that's welcomed so much, you know, as like the norm. And then just like mental health in general, and how there's that pressure for men and women, but men to kind of like hold the fort down and, you know, be tough, and to, you know, always have everything figured out. But after last year, like I thought I went through a lot, but then like seeing the men around me kind of crumble too, and it was an eye opener for me. And so that line for me, if you need some help, don't be afraid to ask. That one really, really means a lot. Mm-hmm. So every time that I sing that line, I always think of the men in my life that I was grateful for, that reached out to me, even though I was going through my own stuff.
Yeah.
But they were also felt comfortable enough to come to me to help them too. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's really insightful. Very insightful. I think it's a very difficult time. I end up in these conversations with the women in my life a lot, and I try to frame it without making any excuses for anybody's behavior, which is hard not to have it interpreted that way, but 100% not making any excuses for people's choices or behavior, but to try to explain that we're in a time in the world where men have, for the most part, been informed by a very narrow set of beliefs and narratives for 1,000,000 years in their biology, it seems, and the whole world saying you shouldn't be that way anymore. And you see boys that seem lost and clinging on to very extreme values, right or left, right across the world. And you see some incredible moments of vulnerability all over the place, but you also see a lot of challenges and a lot of hurt and people hurting others as a result. So that's sort of been my observation. I just think it's really interesting that you, in such a painful time for yourself, did the work to sort of understand what was going on outside of yourself. That's very insightful. I think that's got to be an incredible skill to bring to songwriting in the future. I mean, that vulnerability. So here's also what I loved about your song, Kelsi. I had to be able to tell you that what I think makes it such a good song is because the art is to cleverly disguise the real thing, right? I think that's where art often lies, is that we find a way to disguise the real gem in a place where nobody's going to be looking for it. And I think that you have all these colloquialisms and shared phrases and stuff, which somebody could, on the surface be relating to or be looking for what the next ones you're going to say. But in the middle of it, you drop your own in there, your own little truisms. And my favorite is you can take your time, but don't take it for granted. Things are beautiful even when they're damaged. And like that hits hard, right? Like that's a real line about your own experience in the middle of these other things, which, may land in different places. But we often write cathartically, right? But you've been doing this long enough. And I'm sure because your story is that you wrote that on a plane and the next day you're recording it, which is a pretty unique experience. So you know what's going on in the business of all this at the same time that you're writing cathartically a song. And that's so vulnerable. That line is so vulnerable. Did you have a sense when you wrote it and then when you're recording it that I'm going to have to repeat this now over every night on a stage? I'm going to have to talk about it to guys on their podcast for a long time?
I didn't really think of it that way, I guess, which maybe I should have, or maybe I shouldn't have, because that would have probably maybe discouraged me. But there is a thing now with my music that I am conscious of, at least, like, everything that I'm releasing this year has meaning, like it means something.
Yeah.
And I feel like, because I've now lived all the things, I've experienced all the things, I've lived life, and I feel like before I was singing about things, but I didn't quite understand, or like I didn't have all the life experiences yet. So I kind of refer to my older stuff as maybe a little bit more bubblegum. But I feel like my stuff now is it's all real. And that's one thing that I'm really conscious of, is I only want to put out things that actually mean something from now on for the rest of my life. And so you won't see me performing anything that doesn't mean something to me.
Yeah. My other favorite thing, by the way, about this entire conversation is that probably 5 times you've answered the question right before I was about to answer it. So, because one of my questions was going to be what people's response has been to your new song, because I always think that's really interesting when it's so fresh to find out. But, you're telling me about all these men coming up and being vulnerable about your song and stuff. But so I guess I have a curiosity. I'll ask this really quick, because this is the other interesting thing about the industry to me, right? Is like, we're talking about this right now. You just released the song, you had this unique part of your story is how you wrote it and then recorded it the next day. Like, cause you were obviously flying to do some recording with the producer, and then you're like, and I'm sure producers just love it when the artist shows up and they're like, I have this fresh new one. And then they're like, I thought we were going to work on these other 3. But so, I mean, the process from this happening in your life with the ended relationship to writing the song to now it's released and out in the world, like, what's that time gap? I think people would be so interested to find out, like, what's that time gap look like?
It was almost a year, just over a year ago.
Yeah.
So it was, I was flying home. So I only did that trip actually because it was like another kind of twist of fate where, thank you, Air Canada, they went on strike, and I got to change my flight home for free, and I redirected it through Vancouver because it was in Edmonton. I was at the CC Mays in Edmonton that year.
Yeah.
So flying home from that, I got to redirect my flight through to Vancouver first, stop off at my producer's house, because we were already talking about trying to record the song Breaking Bad, which I released earlier this year too. But Ryan Stewart he's a really talented singer or songwriter producer. He's worked with Carly Rae Jepsen and Simple Plan and Owl City and Sean Desmond and Victoria Duffield. So he's very much in like the pop rock kind of world. And then to kind of like compromise and pull him over into the country world, we wrote Breaking Bad, and it kind of has that like Dasha Austin kind of vibe to it. So that was the reason I actually persuaded him. I said, how about like a song kind of like a High Valley kind of song? And so that's actually what persuaded him to pull him into the countryside, the dark side. But and then while I was there, we had some extra time at the end of the recording session. And he said, well, you want to, like, we can write something else. And do you have anything you've been working on? And I was like, well, that's when I kind of reluctantly brought it up, because I brought that song idea to a few other writes, and they all passed on the idea. And it was just something that was just kind of swirling around in my head, like, take it from someone who knows. If you're going to make a promise, better keep it. Like, just those words were just kind of circling in my head for a few months. And so I took it into a couple of the writes that I had, and they weren't feeling it. So I thought it was just maybe a bad idea. And so, but when I was on that plane, I finally got to like flesh it out and get all my thoughts kind of together. And then I showed it to him, and he was like, immediately, he just dialed right in and kind of just started playing on the guitar what I was envisioning in my head, but I couldn't get it out myself. Like I'm not a great guitarist still, because I only learned, not that long ago, but I'm still, yeah. So he was actually able to like play what I was kind of hoping to come out. So it was a really magical, like one of those moments.
We're back in the Hallmark. We're back on the Hallmark side of your
absolutely.
trajectory.
That's what it felt like, for sure.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because I asked the question about the time gap. I always think it's so interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No, you answered that question. You just gave me more.
Okay.
That's all. You just gave me more. But I think like of all of the artistic practices, right? Like when you have to go out and perform a song every night, people want you to perform it like you just wrote it that day. Like, and they want you to literally feel all the feelings in it, even if those feelings are a year old or 10 years gone. They want you to communicate that. That's really a skill of a performer, right? To be able to still conjure those things up, even though it's not the ones that are in the same moment as the spirit in which you often write a song. So that's the interesting part of singer-songwriter. But it sounds like you've got that part more dialed in all the time, which is pretty cool. So looking forward, because this song is really great, and I'm hoping it does really well for you, I'm wondering what sort of is the thing that's next. And I don't know if that means, like I joked about the plan for 2025, whether this has all actually been in the plan or not, but I'm wondering what the plan is next, whether it's finding more producers that produce moments like that for you, for some of your songs, or whether it's Australia or Texas or, performances. Like you played essentially the big country circuit this summer, which in my understanding, the way that often works is if you get booked on all of them one year, and then you're probably off the next year. So you have time to work on new music. But
well, on those festivals, but
yeah,
it's not stopping. And I've got some big ones already started to line up for next year too. So
good for you. That's awesome.
I'll be around. But no, I'm also recording right now. So I got another song I'm working on right now that kind of continues this story a little bit. And so but this one is like, I want to say my influence for it is more of like an Eric Church vibe. So I have this one coming out, and I have my players that recorded a couple of the the drummer and the guitarist actually just sent me their parts for it today. They just recorded parts of it in Nashville, and they recorded on my song All or Nothing, but they've literally done everything, like toured with like I think Dallas Smith. Dean Brody was one of the drummers, Canadian tour, but he's played on, both of them have played on everything from like Russell Dickerson to Kelsi Ballerini and everyone. So really excited to hear the guitarist parts. But so got that one next. We got a couple more that I'm recording with Chip Matthews. Luke Combs is producer. I'm recording again with Ryan Stewart in Vancouver. So I have like 12 songs that I'm kind of sitting on, Glenn. So
are we talking about an album then? Are you talking about another album attempt?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be recording a couple more singles, releasing a couple more singles, and then they're all gonna go on one
That's awesome.
album. So
that's got to be exciting. That always feels so satisfying.
Oh, I'm excited to have a proper album release party because I didn't get to do one last time.
No doubt. So is this like, it's like when people had their wedding anniversaries or their birthdays or something during COVID and they didn't get to celebrate for whatever reason. So is this 2026 we're talking?
I have two missed anniversary dates, Glenn. I have one for my supposed to be wedding and then one for my supposed to be out. At least I got to get a real one in. One of the two in.
Well, you do. You want to know, I'm not trying to play one-upmanship. I missed my 25th wedding anniversary plans and my 50th birthday the same year. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So that was like pretty shitty. But only to say, like, I totally understand what it feels like to have been like, this isn't fair at all. So that's a 2026 thing. We can look forward to a full record.
I think
hope it all comes together.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. So we'll see if kind of having some talks with like labels and stuff too. So we'll kind of see if the timeline changes. But it looks like 2026.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's worth keeping up in the air if you're doing business, right? For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Kelsi, it's been fantastic to talk to you. Like I said before, my favorite thing is, especially when I find, like, I talk to my friends sometimes. I've got a lot of them to come on this thing. I love finding out something I didn't know, or I just like telling old stories. But it's still one of my favorite things, just when somebody's story comes together for me, like yours has. And I really appreciate your own truth telling and vulnerability and being able to share your experience and your history leading up till now. And it's been really great.
Well, now you're someone who knows.
Now I'm someone who knows. Oh, that was perfect. Oh my God. That was such a great delivery. Anyhow, thank you so much for spending this hour with me. I appreciate you doing all this, and I wish you all the success for your single and all of the great things you have coming up ahead. I look forward to seeing and hearing your name all around, especially when you come back to Alberta.
All right. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Okay. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Kelsi.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for Post Fame with me and my dad.
Okay.
I'm always ready, actually.
Hi. Okay, getting comfortable.
Yep.
Take 2. We're trying the car again. This is for episode 23.
My favorite number, by the way.
What?
Yep.
It's actually, I just saw somebody who posted that they were having their Jordan birthday, which is their 23rd was Michael Jordan's number. And they were like, it's my Jordan birthday. And I'm like,
I've never heard that.
Me neither. It was the first time I'd ever heard it. And then here you're like, it's my favorite number, 23.
Everything's coming up 23.
Everything today is 23. And if you're into numerology, you're going to be texting me to say, go buy a lottery ticket. Anyhow, that's the way it goes. But yeah. Kelsi Mayne, episode 23, Ontario country singer, though she would claim to be a lot more than country.
Yeah.
A whole lot of things. But we are in the middle of first midterm season of the new year. So this is a short and sweet post-fame with Alexi, because I'm stealing her away from...
Yes, I was in the trenches.
Stress of the trenches.
And now I'm out for 5 minutes.
And now she's out in the car for 5 minutes. And that's probably the best.
Yeah.
Okay,
you said you had a couple things. I'll let you go first.
Well, yeah, because there are things that I was like, oh, I could mention these, but there are things that I'm like, I want to mention this, but, I don't want to elaborate on them the whole time.
You don't want to what?
Like, elaborate. Like, I just want to be like, hey, did you, like, this is cool. And then that's all that needs to be said sometimes. But,
that was a big setup, but okay.
No, I was just going to say, the main thing that I find kind of like cool and like maybe niche about her is that she went from being, and correct me if I'm wrong, a nurse.
Yeah.
And in that, like the nursing field, which is female dominated, to being in the, and yes, she's more, but the country music scene, which is male dominated.
Yeah.
And like left a secure job in, I just think it's interesting. It's like she left a secure job to pursue music, which is like a big risk.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that risk and like that transition was from like a female dominated space to a male one, because I think it almost makes it more daunting, and I think it's really rare, and that's what makes it like niche.
Yeah.
To go from a field, like there's not a lot of female dominated spaces in terms of careers, so the fact that she left one.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I didn't even clue into, which is probably because I'm a dude. But, like, I didn't even clue into that. I mean, obviously, the parts about, like, the aspirations for music or whatever. Anyhow, like, yeah, I
just think it's interesting.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, there's that part about the security thing, which, like, her and I had talked at kind of length about me realizing, like, it would kind of ran through her whole family, which is the main thing I was going to make a note of, because that part really kind of hit me. But I didn't sort of clue into that, because there was different parallels I was finding in her story. Not parallels, actually. I used the word dichotomies, which is, I don't even know if I used that word right. So then I got a little cringe with myself in the middle of it. But just that, like while one thing was happening, kind of a very different thing was also happening at the same time. Seemed to be a part of her family story and her story all the way through, which I feel is actually probably quite relatable to a lot of people if they stop and think, you know what I mean, about their own story. But yeah, I mean, I didn't, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually, well, two reasons for this. I didn't dip into some of that. One was because once we got going, it didn't come to mind, and there wasn't even a space for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of made a joke in our conversation that, like, for like 5 times she answered a question before I asked it, like shortly, like just in her, the way she was talking, and then she would end up giving me the answer that I knew I was about to ask a question about. So things kept rolling. But I also didn't dip into even the gender stuff, because I think you and I had a talk before of, like,
It's been said,
and it's not like it doesn't need to keep being said, but I felt like it needs to be natural. Do you know what I mean? So if that's not part of her conversation and her story, the same way, like, I didn't need to, like, pry in and be like, are you sure there isn't a horrible, like, run of sexism in your story?
Do you feel oppressed?
Yeah, do you feel oppressed? You can talk to me about it. No, I didn't feel the big need for that. So I was really happy how the flow went, but like, really, and I don't often do this, which I did in the conversation, which is just sort of stop and give her, like, my heartfelt thoughts at the moment, which was, like, she kept talking about her experiences, but I just realized that, like, she had these parents, and she described their life being actual creative people who didn't really get to fully pursue their creativity because they needed to do it to pay the bills and to take the responsible version of the job of a creative skill, which I really obviously relate to, because like, I've figured out how to take sort of a design sense and all that stuff and turn it into a career to pay the bills. And but it can come at, you make sacrifices, right? And I just realized when she started telling her sweet story about her grandma, that her grandma made sacrifices, and here she's, like, made a bunch of these practical, safe choices, but then was trying to break out of that and actually pursue the creative choice. And I was just like, she really deserves. It just feels like she deserves it. Like a lot of people do that. And I don't have a ton to go on to say that to her. I just met her, right? But it just felt like, this is part of her whole family story.
Yeah.
And like, it would be really nice to see it really, really come through for her. I think everybody's been making choices in her family for other people.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that kind of hit me. And I'm not going to lie. I felt a little emotional when I was saying it to her. Yeah, but
it's a special thing.
Yep. Anyhow, that was a great conversation, and I love meeting new artists. I felt by the end of it, we were friends, which is always the goal.
Yeah, says a lot about her.
Yep. But in order to stay friends with you, I'm gonna stop the podcast at 7 minutes, and then we'll carry on.
And then we can still be friends.
We can still be friends then.
Yep, I won't be a grump.
Okay, well, you're allowed, but it's okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll charge my mic this time.
Okay, back to the house from the car. Love you.
Love you, bye.
Bye.